and I work with Pastor Bill, and I'm the trip coordinator, and I work with him and the owner of Faith-Based Expeditions, Russ Goodman, excuse me, and I kind of do information, kind of logistics. Pastor Bill does the preaching, the gospel, the biblical aspect, and so we work with Faith-Based Expeditions as well as the Israeli tour guide that we get in the bus driver. And when we get into Israel, a lot of times they will be deferring to Pastor Bill, and they'll be sitting at a table kind of away from the group a little bit and kind of talk about logistics and get those things done. But if you have questions, Pastor Bill is a pretty busy person, and so that's kind of my role, is to help facilitate and be the liaison as best I can, and we communicate quite frequently. And so if you don't get your answers, you can always contact Russ Goodman if you want to, and that's on top of the brochure. You will see it's Faith-Based Expeditions. You can click on that website and email Russ Goodman, that is the owner of this company. So welcome, and thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
You want me to go?
You okay. Put this great slideshow together. Why don't you just walk them through it?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're doing 11-day biblical encounter in Israel, and we're tour dates. We leave on Monday, March 25th. So if you get the sheet out with the flight schedule, we leave at 8 a.m. out of SeaTac on Air Canada, and we will get to Tel Aviv the next day on March 26th. We will leave on Thursday, April 4th out of Tel Aviv, and because of the time change, we'll get back into Seattle that evening at 9:45 p.m. So 3 days is the flight schedule, and that's typical for international flights.
About how many hours in the air?
Well, I love this flight schedule compared to what we did last year. They try really hard to minimize our layover time. So the trip over is about 16 hours, but that includes our layover in Toronto. So it'll be a nice little jaunt, and then the long flight will be from Toronto to Tel Aviv.
So I want to say it's 8-9 hours.
Yes.
8 hours on the plane.
First class?
I wish I could say it's first class, George, but
Yeah.
We could talk about getting an upgrade. Yeah.
This is a group that went in 2017.
Julie, can I just ask a question about
Yes.
so when you get to Toronto, do you have to do any custom stuff in that hour, or go through immigration or anything?
Pretty
like
sure
that?
we do the customs.
No,
that's right, it is in Toronto.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but what happened when we went through Frankfurt, when we were boarding an Israel flight, Israel did their own inspection. It's a little bit more in depth than TSA. Like, they took a wand and they wand our shoes and everything, and so we went through a security clearance in Frankfurt before we went to Tel Aviv. I'm assuming that's the same, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tight connection for an international flight.
Yeah.
I've traveled a lot that way, and that's a pretty tight connection.
Is it an LL flight from?
It's Air Canada all the way.
Good.
Yeah. And, I know that Russ has done so many of these, so I'm not, we'll ask him about that, just express that. Yeah.
Well, as Americans, many people from different countries travel to Israel, and the people that Faith-Based Expeditions works with, I believe they're out of Florida, and so they create our group airfare, and I'm not too worried about that, because I think these hubs are getting better at getting you through faster. This past summer I went through Amsterdam, and I'm like, oh, how much time can I get through? And they just speed it up really fast. So I'm not too worried about it.
Yep.
Pastor Bill has traveled with Faith-Based Expeditions twice now, once with a church from Seattle and with our church. And here, if you look at our schedule, you can look at, if you open up the brochure, you can see on day 3, we're going to start moving up drive up to Sea of Galilee, And then we'll spend those days at the Sea of Galilee more specifically. Did you want to add
Yeah,
something?
so the front part of the tour, we'll start off with Caesarea Maritima, which is the seaport that Herod the Great created, and that was the main in and out from the world of the Holy Land during Jesus' time. And so we'll look at the biblical things that happen in Caesarea Maritima. We'll move to Mount Carmel, which is the great Elijah story, and Elisha, and so that'll help us ground, those stories in a place. And then we move to Nazareth and the Sea of Galilee. And so the great thing about the way we've got our tour, and then day 4 you can see Capernaum and Tabitha and Peter's primacy. The feedback from last time that we went is that it was too rushed up around the Sea of Galilee in particular. And so we've planned this to give actually a whole another day to spread out all of those things. And so all of Jesus' ministry, public ministry, happened up in the round Sea of Galilee until he went down to Jerusalem. So we're going to get steeped in all of those stories. We're going to spend time in his hometown. We're going to spend time in Magdala, which I think, let's see,
That will be on the day 5.
day 5. So shall we go?
Well, I want to kind of
sure,
go back a little bit.
Yeah.
We have not been to the Nazareth village, and that's a replica of people acting in an open-air museum during Jesus' time, so that will be new to us.
Yes.
We didn't do that last time. The Mount of Beatitudes, there's some nuns that are very particular about groups and their time that they spent, so we asked that the Mount of Beatitudes would be at the end of the day so we could have more time there. And we specifically asked for that. And then in the evening, this is optional, but we had such a good time last year, is that we went to the Scott's Hotel, and this guy exports Israeli wine. 95% comes to the United States. And so he kind of gave a lot of interesting things. And I think kids can be there too, just not, I don't know if they got to drink the wine, but I know a family joined us.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
So that's just a fun thing. Yeah, Israel's doing a lot in wine production now. But
So that's Caesarea.
that's Caesarea Maritima. And then this is a Druid. You'll hear more about that. But so they family that does great Mediterranean food for tours and stuff. So there we are chowing down.
Yeah. This place had great hummus. I hope we go back there. Why this picture's here is that part of the reasons that most of your meals are included, particularly lunch, other churches could reduce the cost of the trip, and you'd be on lunch on your own, but it would take away the time that we're in Israel.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you get a better quality meal at a cheaper price, and we get service, and then we're out of there, and we get to spend more time. Because as you know, that's daylight savings time, so it's going to get dark earlier in the evening. So we do lunch together except for 2 days. When we arrive in Tel Aviv, and Pastor Bill is waiting for a sandwich at a street vendor in Bethlehem.
Yeah.
So
You want to have this falafel sandwich. It's really good. It's just one of these guys on the street. It'll be a fun way to have lunch. So yeah. Capernaum, Jesus' hometown. So much of Jesus' ministry is there, and they've actually, a lot of the sites, they're not, they can't say 100% sure this was there, but they're like 90% sure that they know that Peter's mother-in-law's house, or Peter and the disciples stayed, that they've identified that place. And so we'll talk about that, we'll show you that. And then this is the Synagogue in Capernaum, which is actually 5th century, so 500 years after Jesus, but it's on top of where first century synagogue was. Yeah.
So what's unique about this picture is what's different about our tour compared to other churches is a lot of times the pastor kind of steps back and lets the tour guide do all the talking. In our tour, Pastor Bill and the tour guide share. So the Israeli tour guide will give the historical aspect of the place, and then Pastor Bill will step in and preach the biblical or the gospel importance of that area. So you're going to get 2 different things. And so it's a lot of fun, and it was very powerful hearing from our pastor the scripture and the meaning, rather than someone that wasn't Christian. That's just, he was Jewish, but did not have the Christian aspect to it.
Right.
And this is,
It's called Peter's Primacy, but it's the place where, you know, Jesus, when he was raised from the dead, they're confident that it's up on the north side of the lake, and where he sat and had breakfast, you know, with the disciples and this type of thing. So, yeah.
Mount Beatitudes.
Yep. So, and like Julie said, that Mount Beatitudes is beautiful. It's, you know, overlooks the Sea of Galilee. You can just imagine it. We don't know exactly where Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount, but this is the place identified by tradition. So whether or not it's this exact space isn't the spot, but we'll study the Sermon on the Mount there while you're overlooking the Sea of Galilee, and get some time to spend some time there. It's absolutely beautiful. It really is beautiful. And then they have a church, of course, over that site that we can go into. So, yeah.
Oh, there's the wine
There's
tasting.
the wine tasting.
And
yeah.
Melanie's going again. Melanie went with us last year, and her and her husband are coming again.
Yep.
And so you can see to the left is a cellar where we'll be tasting. Then day 5 is still, we're at the Sea of Galilee. We're going to take a replica of a Jesus boat, and it will be just our church, our tour on there. And then Bethsaida is new. Pastor Bill really wanted to go this. There's archaeological digs there.
The exciting thing is they thought they knew where Bethsaida. Bethsaida was really the home. I mean, Capernaum was Jesus' base of operation, but the hometown of the disciples was Bethsaida. The place they had identified is pretty far off from the shore of Sea of Galilee, but now through archaeology and stuff, they kind of like figured out that why that could be, and so I definitely want us to see that. It's kind of a new thing, and there's some really neat things that you'll learn about from Bethsaida. And then Magdala is a special place to me. I don't know if we have pictures of that. Well, do you want to keep going before we go to that picture?
You can tell.
So Magdala was found in 2008 or 7. This is a town on the eastern part of the Sea of Galilee. So, you guys, Sea of Galilee up here. Magdala's on this eastern side. Capernaum's on the very north side. But what does Magdala remind you of? Mary of Magdala. Well, we knew that there was a town named Magdala because we knew about Mary Magdala. Well, they actually in 2000, like I say, 7 or 8, the Catholic Church was building a retreat center, and you know, in the Holy Land, you have to get all these permits and permissions, and you have to dig down and check everything. And they're just about done checking everywhere, and clink. Of course, the father was like so disappointed because he knew that would mean, you know, more red tape, more. Well, it turns out they found an entire town of Magdala. A mudslide somewhere 100 AD or so had covered the whole thing up. But the Romans had destroyed it in 68 AD. So when the Romans destroyed a town, they'd just level it and leave it, or they'd fill it in. Well, this one was filled in with a landslide. So, a mudslide, and so no one for 2,000 years knew where this town was. And they found it in 2008. So there is, what you see on the right is the synagogue that they discovered as they unearthed the town of Magdala. Of all the places that you'll go in the Holy Land, you know, Jesus preached in all the synagogues around the Sea of Galilee. This is a spot, you know, he sat right there and taught and preached. They found this Magdala stone, which I won't go into now. We'll talk about that at one of the Bible studies and stuff. So so the streets that people walked, they discovered big fish tanks where they have live fish and sell the fish from the Sea of Galilee. It's just really, really cool. And then I think the picture after this, down below, the rocks on the below is a street room from the 1st century. We don't know if Jesus was exactly there, but those stones people walked on in the 1st century. And in this area, you remember the story of the woman touching Jesus' garment? this picture, which is beautiful to look at on this slide, but is, you know, if I'm standing up, you know, my head is, you know, just about, it's just huge, and it's just unbelievable. So we're going to have a prayer, a service of the word for healing, and we'll do some beautiful singing. The acoustics down there are beautiful, and so we've actually got this room reserved for us. A lot of tours, you just come and you see it, and then you got to go. But we're going to actually have some time there. As a part of this, what I'm really excited, so the Catholic Church has done a beautiful job with this. This retreat center is all dedicated to the women disciples. And so Mary Magdala, you know, there's a different little chapel for each woman with beautiful mosaics of the story of the women with Jesus. And we'll celebrate how Jesus, you know, empowered and embraced women as disciples and followers of his, which was very radical for his day. So anyway, I think it'll be a very powerful time, and I'm really excited about it. A lot of tours don't even go there because it's not on the, you know. Let me say this. So when you go to one of the great things about our tour, as I'm, you know, want to give you information, is the biggest problem in going to the Holy Land, if I was just going to go or hook up with the church, is the tourist side of it. I mean, there are pilgrims from everywhere going there, and it is tourism city. It is, you know, and it can be very overwhelming and take away from the experience. The great thing about how we do it is we do everything we can to kind of minimize that kind of chaos. And a lot of the pilgrims who come are Catholic or Orthodox, and they are really invested in, like, the site, you know, like touching this stone, and not that we won't be, and in fact I'll talk about that in the first Bible study next week, but and how we look at that. But so a lot of people don't go to Magdala because it doesn't have any famous, like, Jesus did this or that. But of all the places, truly, that you're going to be, you can stand right there because he would have preached in the synagogue. And so anyway, it's now become a pretty popular place, but it's not nearly as popular as some of the others. So I really, this is always a highlight for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Sorry, I went too long.
It's one of Pastor Bill's favorite places, and when the group was there, we did not have enough time there.
Yeah.
The chapels are just amazingly beautiful, and it was our first time seeing the Sea of Galilee, and we were just so filled with excitement.
They have their main chapel looks out on the Sea of Galilee, and the altar is a boat.
Once we leave the Sea of Galilee, we'll kind of do Mount Arbel, and then we'll move on to Jericho. And we didn't do this last time, so this is a new experience for us. And when we were at the Sea of Galilee, we did a renewal of baptism, but we decided that we wanted to go to the River Jordan. Pastor Bill I don't want to say, we're not going to dunk each other.
No.
So it's just a renewal baptism where you kind of stick your finger in the water and do a renewal baptism. And so we're not going to do any dunking. I know that's really important to other denominations and faith. And then we'll head on over to Jerusalem.
Mount Arbel is a mount that looks down on the Sea of Galilee, so it's right on the trade route. Maybe we'll talk about that, but yeah. Affirmation of baptism, renewal of our baptism. We do it in worship sometimes, but it's really cool to do it in the actual Jordan River, and so we'll have a chance to do that. Yep.
Yeah. So when we did in the Sea of Galilee, there was bathers and people swimming, and
It
they
was
were just
cool.
we were so.
It was cool, but there wasn't quite.
Like, what are these people doing? And then on day 7, we're going to go into Palestine, to Bethlehem, and we're going to attend a worship service at the Christmas Lutheran Church. Was really meaningful to many people. The service is mostly in Arabic, but I felt like it's a different pastor now, but when the pastor spoke, I thought he had the most kindest brown eyes, and even though I didn't understand what was being said, you could feel the Spirit of God there. And the people were incredibly friendly to us afterwards during fellowship. We'll go to the Church of the Nativity, and this is where you get to do lunch on your own, where Pastor Bill really liked the street vendor, and he,
Some falafel sandwich.
yep.
Or other things, chicken kebab.
And then we'll move into the Western Wall. We'll leave, because there's, You have to, it's our bus, hopefully our bus driver will have the permission to go into Bethlehem, but we'll have to go through security. We won't have to get off the bus, but we'll go through security or bus into Bethlehem, because it is the Palestine state versus Israel.
And please know, because you hear all kinds of stuff, this is a very safe, Bethlehem is a really good place right now. And there are issues and struggles, but the security is really fantastic, and our guide is really on top of that. And so we move through the security really quickly, and you definitely want to go to Bethlehem. And so the other thing is this is one of the places that we have a spot to shop. There's all kinds of vendors, but a lot of it's from China, and it's that type of thing. But there's a family in Bethlehem. They're Orthodox Christians, so it's kind of fun to go there and support a local Christian business, and they have some beautiful things. I've got a Jerusalem cross that I bought out of the olive wood. Yeah. So, or not. You don't have, it's not. You don't have to do anything that way. But so we'll have a couple spots where if you want to shop and get some mementos and stuff like that, you can do that. So, but this again is Bethlehem, place of Jesus' birth, and we'll go to the Church of the Nativity where it's over the top of the cave that is believed that he was born, and we'll talk about his birth. And if you're wondering how do we know that was the spot, I'll tell you now that we don't know for sure, but Anne, the mother of Constantine, when in the 4th century, in the early 300s, as she became a Christian, so we need to know where these sites were, and so she went and talked to all the local people and got the local traditions, and that's how they established the locations of those places. So we don't know for sure, but it's possible. So anyway, yeah.
And then we're going to go back into Jerusalem by bus and go to the Western Wall and the Southern Steps, which was pretty powerful for me. It was a little bit rainy, but our tour guide made sure to stand on those steps, because those are 2,000 years old. Yeah. Not the refurbished ones. So that was really powerful. So here's the Jesus boat, and there's Pastor Bill with this traveling guitar, and he's got his iPad, and
It's pretty exciting. It's pretty cool to do a Bible study about Jesus calming the sea when you're on the Sea of Galilee.
Did you do any walking while you were?
I did not walk on the water. Although, you've given me some ideas, George. We'll talk about it. Maybe we can team up.
Oh, Lord, please, yes.
It was just a little breezy on the boat. You can look at what people were wearing. Some people were wearing capris, sandals, shoes, a raincoat or another coat. One of the reasons that we go during this time is because Sea of Galilee is just green and lush and beautiful. Where in the summer it's oppressive and brown, and the temperatures are quite comfortable.
Yeah. It is a perfect.
Can you just touch on that for a moment for me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Temperature and attire.
I found it to be very similar to, as far as temperature, to here during the spring. It was 70s, 80s. We were very blessed because they got
high 60s.
Yeah, high 60s, 70s. But then it seems like when we were leaving, weren't they having a heat? Oh, that was my first tour. It was later in June, or end of May, or somewhere in there. And Jerusalem was getting up to 100, and everybody was panicked because that was crazy.
So 60s and
70s.
Yeah, 60s,
springtime
70s.
rain.
A little bit of rain here and there. I don't think it rained once though when we were there. Maybe
No, in Jerusalem
Oh,
we had a little
yeah,
bit.
that's right, in Jerusalem.
So you just kind of some layers, but
Yep.
Jeans, no jeans.
I love, jeans are fine, but I like those cargo pants. And the reason I like the cargo pants is, especially if they have the zip, because shorts are great most of the time, but there are a few places where you can't have shorts, so you can just put those on, zip them up, and you're good to go. So that's what I took. I just took 2 pairs of cargo pants. You do not have to take dress clothes. Just totally
pretty casual.
Yeah,
And I would
very
assume
very casual.
Good walking shoes with a,
Yes.
That's key. Yep,
Yeah.
kid-proof bottom.
get good walking shoes that are well broken in.
Yes.
Yep.
Good questions, Linda,
Yep.
thank you. So here we are, going into Bethlehem, and then that's inside the Christmas church.
And this is a Lutheran, Palestinian Lutheran church. If you don't know, there's a significant Lutheran Christian Palestinian presence, and a very important community actually between the Muslim, Palestinian, Jewish state. Anyway, so, and our ELCA church is very connected. It's called the Church Jordan and the Holy Land, Lutheran Church of Jordan and Holy Land. I forget the acronyms exactly, but yeah.
And there's Evie Randall that went with us last time, and there's the Western Wall, and you can see in the background. And one thing that I learned that I didn't know, that I worked with was Jewish, is that when you write your prayers and you put it in a little piece of paper and you put it in the wall, you don't turn your back to the Western Wall, you back up. So when you go there, when you see people leaving the wall, they're backing up. They're walking backwards. They don't put their... So that was interesting.
Yeah, and you'll learn all about the significance of the Western Wall. I've put in a request because it just depends, but